Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Echo Education's orientation. Just to explain to you a little bit about orientation, it can also be called onboarding. Basically, this just means about the things that you can expect when you arrive in China, everything from your first day through to cultural differences and so forth. Just to introduce myself, my name is Jonathan. I've lived in Hangzhou for 5 years, working as an ESL teacher for 4 of those 5 years. So throughout this PPT, we're going to talk about several things. We should cover about Echo. Second part would be cultural differences. We will also offer some life tips, views, Chinese food, some tips on how to be a good teacher, and then quickly review the manual at the end. I will try and use some annotations throughout the video, and you can download this video or keep it as a link for future reference. Okay, so let's move on. So about Echo. So the history of Echo, just in briefly, it was started by a Canadian citizen living in China in around 2007, started with 70 students. Over time, this increased to more than 3,500 students, based in Hangzhou, in several areas of Hangzhou, which is Shaoshan and Binjiang. Now, one of the key differences, how the company grew in 2014, it started placing teachers in public schools. So it was seen as a private business for outsourcing and recruiting teachers in Canada, America, UK, Ireland, Australia, South Africa, and other applicable candidates. So this orientation, this onboarding can be used for both teachers working directly for Echo at their training centres, and also for Echo teachers who are on dispatch, which will be working in public schools across Zhejiang and Jiangsu. Okay. Just a quick point here. Echo at the moment has over 200 foreign teachers on dispatch throughout the provinces I've just mentioned. There are various agencies throughout China. And Echo is one of the biggest in Hangzhou, if not the biggest. A point about agencies is that they are the best source of finding teachers for schools in other countries. There are a few variables about this because basically, in terms of HR at schools, it's very difficult for them to actually know where to find good, capable foreign teachers. So it's companies like Echo that go out recruiting, using their networking and past experience to try and find teachers to come to China. They're also responsible both legally and morally, shall we say, for the well-being of the teachers while they're there. Whilst public school teachers will have a direct HR at their assigned school, their governing HR remains Echo, the agency. The schools kind of prefer this. They outsource and they allow the agent to take on responsibility, and therefore, if the schools have a problem, they kind of go directly to Echo rather than the teacher themselves. It's kind of a bit of indirect management, shall we say. Okay, so looking at departments, Echo has a recruiting department, a certification department, marketing, and academic department. These are headed by different people throughout the company. If you go to head office in Binjiang, it's a quite a plush office, and it's well staffed there. There's also the foreign teacher management department. Now, this is one good thing about agencies, is that they have a dedicated team to pretty much 24 hours looking after teachers. They all speak fluent English, and they're there to arbitrate and help you with anything from a bank account to phone card to to transport. So really, they are your lifeline in China. And as much as as shall we say, experienced teachers on the ground, they kind of turn their nose up at agencies, so to speak. Well, that's all well and good, you know, if you've got a few years experience in China. However, when your first year, really, you know, a good agent and a good teacher management department is you know, very, very important, because you can concentrate on your job and you don't have to worry about the day-to-day things, which can be quite difficult when you don't know a second language and you're in a foreign country. So, you know, once you get some more experience under your belt, then obviously you can stand on your own 2 feet, so to speak. Okay, so it's really seen as a three-party relationship between school, ECHO, and teacher. So ECHO, you know, are a middleman, so to speak, and they're there to arbitrate between both parties. You know, conversely, this also means that, you know, that if there are problems from the teacher side of things, they have to deal with it, and if there's, you know, grievances from the school side of kind of thing, they have to deal with it then. So, you know, it's quite an important role that they play. So why choose ECHO? Well, this gives you more options, you get daily help, and you get a one-stop service for certification. So in order to work in China, I'm sure as most of you know now, you've had to get your notarization done, you've had to get your visas done and so forth. There's quite a lot of bureaucratic red tape involved these days. That's largely seen as essential to cleaning up the industry. So, you know, ECHO are, shall we say, ahead of the curve with this, and they can do things quite quickly. So moving on to cultural differences, and really this is a good way for the orientation to really go into a bit more detail, because cultural differences, to explore these, are quite key. Obviously, we have the language. Now, the language is quite a shock to many foreigners when they come to China. This can be anything from, you know, getting in a taxi for the first time to trying to do a bit of shopping. The reason why you're coming to China is because the average Chinese person cannot speak English. And for the future generations of China, for the children and so forth, they really need to improve this. China does score quite low down on English speaking assessments on the global ranking charts. Really, in my personal experience, China is probably the lowest in the world. You know, even when you compare with Thailand, Vietnam, Mongolia, these countries, they do have a base level of English higher than China. The people who speak English in China are usually the well-educated ones. So people working in the service sector, don't expect them to know any English. There are apps, language apps that you can use that are very useful these days. There's documentation, PDFs available from ECHO, which will give you a bit more detail about which ones to download. I can recommend Pleco as well, and Google Translate also works. So really, the language is the main cultural shock, shall we say. But all the ECHO team, certainly anyone dealing with teachers, they speak fluent English. So again, they're there as your guardian to help you with day-to-day life. Okay, some things like tableware, as you all know, chopsticks. Now they're called kuaids in Chinese, and these chopsticks, you know, they're used everywhere. It's quite difficult to find a knife, fork, and spoon, certainly all three together, even in good restaurants in China. So it's something that you will have to adapt to quite quickly. It takes a few days. There's a guide on here about showing how to use these chopsticks, but the truth is really you just do what works. You know, every Chinese person has a slightly different method. Children just kind of adapt to it, and you know, it becomes second nature. So if you're watching this, you know, this video before you come to China, it's a good idea to get yourself a pair of chopsticks and maybe give it a bit of a practice. Don't be too embarrassed about dropping food or being a bit clumsy with them. It's to be expected. Even expert people kind of drop food with chopsticks. Some of them can be a bit different, you know, from plastic and wooden chopsticks to metal chopsticks. Some of them, you know, are easier to handle than others, so to speak. So yeah, so I think we're all well aware chopsticks in East Asia different. Right, crowds and lines. So yeah, shall we say, in the West, we're used to what we call orderly queuing. The British, particularly, we like to say that we consider ourselves as key proponents of the queue. Now things are changing in China in general. You seem to see more queuing, orderly systems. Having said that, the queue is still not as formulated as it is in Europe. People will push in. If you're not close, there's also not much body space. So if you're queuing behind someone, queue very closely. Otherwise, someone will just step into that space. Personal space is a lot less of a premium in China. And that's really just to do with, the volume of people there. I can tell you my first day at the train station in China, I actually ended up further back in a queue than I started, because I left a good meter in front of me, and people just kept coming in front of me, and they didn't think, have a second thought about it, and I couldn't speak any Chinese to argue my point. So it took me around about 2.5 hours to get onto a train. So you have to be a bit assertive, try not to get angry. The young generations, they tend to queue a lot more orderly, and they will lambast people if they don't queue up. But there's no point in getting irate or frustrated or trying to discipline one of the elderly of the Chinese, shall we say. It's just you're just going to be fighting a losing battle. So be prepared for that. Okay, so leadership. In terms of cultural differences, there's a saying in Chinese called 没办法, which often is about, it can be used in different contexts, and kind of it can mean nothing I can do about it, or not my responsibility. So there's the hierarchy of systems in China. A lot of people don't want to take direct responsibility, shall we say. It's, shall we say, shirking responsibility, but not to be too critical of this. It's really seen as you don't want to stand up and be known, because maybe historically those that put their head up or raise their hand, that hand would get cut down, or that head would get cut off. So in the West, we like to assume a lot of responsibility and say, okay, hands up. If that's my mistake, I'll put my hands up. It can be very indirect in China, and this will lead us to something else as well. Talking about how schools manage you, there's a lot of, it's not two-faced nest, but there's a lot of, shall we say, indirect criticism. People may be nice to your face or say positive things. However, the true intent of that is, or the true meaning may not be as what it seems. Again, this comes down to something called face in Chinese culture. There's also, in terms of leadership as well, and our personal responsibility in the West, this gives us more freedom and things that we can do something. China, it's more authoritarian as well. Okay, water, one of my favorite things, drinking hot water. So hot water is just a part of life in China. People really don't like cold water, and they will just, insist that hot water will cure all ills. There's no point in really arguing against it. It's firmly ingrained in the culture. In terms of the cleanliness of water, do not drink water direct from the tap. There's plenty of bottled water available. It's very cheap, and you can also boil the water and drink it. There are some very good filter systems that you can put in your kitchen to filter the water directly. However, unless you've been in China for a year and your digestive system has gotten used to, shall we say, the local food and the local bacteria, I wouldn't really recommend even using a filter system. But it's, in terms of food cleanliness and water cleanliness, it is improving, and they do monitor it, a lot. So it's something not to worry about too much. Again, this is, many countries in the world don't have clean drinking water direct from the tap. Beds. Okay, so one very common story that you hear from teachers arriving in China, that they are very tired. They throw their luggage down and jump onto the bed, in that dramatic kind of laid out fashion, only to crack their backs on what seems like a concrete floor. It's not concrete, but a lot of the beds in China can be hard wooden beds, and we kind of find them uncomfortable. There are ways around this. You can buy a very cheap mattress topper for about dollars. It would work out $10, maybe up to $20, and this usually does the trick. So which apartment you're staying in, or whether you're staying with school accommodation, just check out the mattress before you start jumping onto it in exaggerated fashion, because it can be a bit of a shock. Okay, toilets. I'm sure, as you know, in East Asia and especially China, there are lots of squat toilets, and these are still very common. Anything from hotels and 5-star hotels, shopping centers, you will always find a squat toilet there. There are sit-down toilets, a lot in the public amenities now. However, you will find no toilet roll. You kind of have to carry some tissues around with you. There's various stories for this, that, shall we say, the poorer people of China will go into public toilets and take the toilet roll. So most people carry like a small packet of tissues around with them. Sit-down toilets are available, common, but the squat toilet is still more common. And in your apartment, you will have a sit-down toilet. So the majority of houses domestically now, they will have a sit-down toilet, flush toilet. Okay. China is incredibly safe. It is really safe, actually, in terms of breaking the law through criminal violence or violent crime. It's pretty much non-existent on the East Coast in the main cities now. It's very safe. The police actually don't have much to do. There's still a bit of theft, sneaky crime, stealing bicycles, things like that, but it's pretty uncommon these days. There's really no confrontational violence. However, saying that, you do have to be careful, look after yourself, because crossing the roads can be dangerous places. The pedestrian is seen as the underling of the road, shall we say. Really, the smaller vehicle you are, the less priority you have. So really, it's a bit different from the West, where you kind of have to be cautious and give the pedestrian the right of way, or be cautious for cyclists and things like that. Kind of like the bigger car is the king of the road. And, the driving can be a bit more erratic. Actually, not can be, it is a lot more erratic. So just be cautious. Probably the most dangerous thing you will do in China is cross the road. And be careful. If you do use a bicycle, wear a helmet as well. And that goes especially for an e-bike, for an electric bike. It's not uncommon for you to hear of stories, especially of people drinking on bicycles. And then this brings us to drinking. Now, one of the things about China is that alcohol is readily available. And a lot of foreigners in general, like a good drink, and we can drink quite a lot. You can also drink in public in China. It's quite relaxed about drinking. It's not uncommon, for people to drink baijiu for breakfast, but they kind of don't drink to excess. A lot of the time, really, because they can't. Again, they have something called a red flush, where the face goes red. It kind of puts a lot of people off drinking. But foreigners can get a bit carried away. And as a teacher, you have to be careful. Then the schools know, don't think for 1 second that people can't smell alcohol on you, or think, not realize that you've had a drink. You may think that you've gotten away with it. There's been many cases in the past, especially in training centers. But the thing is, they know, they really do know. And it's just not professional these days. So, do not end up in trouble in terms of violent crime, confronting locals. It won't end well. The police will largely find in favor of the local. The last thing that China wants are drunk, unprofessional foreigners you know, going over there. But, you know, by all means, have a drink. If you're not at school or it's the weekend, you know, it's no problem. There's a lot of social life in Hangzhou, in China as it is, especially among expats. But really, you know, you've got to know your limits. China's made a conscious effort, you know, for it not to become like Thailand now or Vietnam, and that's not to disrespect, you know, teachers in Thailand and Vietnam, but I think anyone that's been in the industry knows that those countries tend to attract, shall we say, the more decadent heavy drinkers and so forth. So, you know, it's not a case of you can't. It's just do it at the right time, right place. Yeah, and things like prostitution. So this is illegal in China. Now, it is around in places. You know, it's the same as in most countries. It can be at KTVs and things like that. You have to be careful because it can be a form of entrapment as well for foreigners. You know, not only will they try and get money from you for a legal service, but if you take that service, or even if you negotiate about that service, they may get more money by bribing you or threatening you with the police and so forth. So again, this is a big no-no. And gambling is also illegal in China, apart from Macau. So if you want to gamble, you can head over to Macau. And drugs. Now, drugs strictly forbidden in China. Now, this is, again, going back to the Thailand, Vietnam situation and ESL teachers. ESL teachers can be a bit, shall we say, free-spirited. And it certainly hasn't been uncommon in the past for people to dalliance in illegal drugs. And maybe China at some point did turn more of a blind eye. Now, this is definitely not the case in the last few years. There is drug testing involved, and there can be random drug tests. So this should really be avoided at all costs. And this goes for marijuana, even though it's legal in the States and in Canada, Portugal, it is illegal in China, and possession is counted in your blood as well. So if you do like a smoke of marijuana, you should probably quit at least a month before you head out to China, because if it does show up in a blood test, you could be in trouble. These things kind of come in cycles where the government will crack down every so often, but they're very serious about it. And a lot of it is because they just want to professionalize the industry. It's not a big conspiracy about foreigners. You hear a lot of this around, but they, you know, the kids are seen as very precious things in China in the future, and they want to make sure that you know, their children are being looked after and mentored by, you know, shall we say, law-abiding people, and certainly by the law-abiding people of that country, of China, following Chinese rules. So when it comes to emergency numbers, we have the police, the fire, and the ambulance here. There are also tourist police, and there's also an English-speaking option as well, and I believe on most of the emergency service numbers. Just a quick note about ambulances. You will notice in China that many ambulances, even when they're on lights and in an emergency, they will be kept up in traffic. The cars don't move out the way for emergency vehicles, largely because there's so many cars and there's not enough space to get onto a sidewalk or whatever. So, you know, the police there's a lot of police and they can respond very quickly. You don't see an awful lot of police, to be honest, but what they have is cameras, so they can respond to an incident quite quickly. Okay, moving on to renting an apartment. So if you don't get free accommodation with the school, usually with an apartment, you will have to supply at least 1 month's deposit and 3 months rent up front. It can be negotiated maybe to a lower rate. It is increasing the accommodation in Hangzhou, the rate, and it depends really what you want. You can get really an older style building, 1990s. There okay to live in. They're very different from what we live in America, the UK, and Europe. It can be cold, not much. There's no central heating south of the Yangtze River. The new modern apartments in China are usually a bit more expensive. So really, it's up to you. You need to work out your money situation, the location. Everything tends to do the job. You certainly won't be left in the rain, or there'd be it would be an uninhabitable place. But shall we say the overall comfort that we enjoy in your average house in Europe and America probably isn't the same level as it is in China. It could be, but it's just that things like excessive home decorations, decorating aren't really integral to your average Chinese house. It's very kind of food focused, family focused, TV focused. So when your second payment can be a further 3 months rent as well. This is kind of your average. So it's kind of important to save money. And your utility bills can also be subsidized. Utility bills in China are very cheap, certainly comparable to North America and Europe. Electricity can be around $10 a month only, and then your phone is around $10 or $12 a month. Internet, cheap. So it's comparing to cost of living in the UK, it's probably about 20% of what I pay in the UK. It's very cheap. The kind of cost of living of utilities and the day-to-day cost of living for food and so forth. Okay, so important holiday dates. New Year's Day. People don't get Christmas off in China. It's become a bit more popular, but it's not an official government holiday. Chinese New Year is the longest national holiday. And then we have several other festivals, including Labor Day. Dragon Boat Festival is good. That's in June time. And that's lots of fun because usually that's kind of signifies the start of summer and very good weather. And then you have Mid-Autumn and National Day in October, which is usually joined to make 1 week. It's called the Golden Week, and this is people try and take like a 1 week's holiday. It's very busy in China. In terms of utilizing your holidays, if you're moving around within China, expect to be very busy, a lot of hustle and bustle. The cities, the center of the cities actually get eerily quiet. A lot of teachers will kind of fly out to the country for those holidays, go to Southeast Asia to kind of escape the madness. But you can explore during these holidays within China. My recommendation is to try and get things fitted in for the weekends. Do as much exploring at weekends as you can, largely because times like Golden Week, Dragon Boat Festival, and Chinese New Year can be extremely busy within China. Okay, some life tips. It's important to get a VPN. So we've got ExpressVPN or NordVPN here. I recommend Astral as well. Astral seems to be very stable. This will help you use Google, Facebook, and YouTube. You cannot access these inside China without your VPN. Install your VPN before you get to China because you'll find it very difficult to do inside. And your VPN is your lifeline, okay? Right, everything in China runs on WeChat. It is very good, okay? It is a very good application, which is kind of a combination of WhatsApp and Facebook. A key difference between the West and China with social media is that their social media is used for work and it's used for everything. Your boss will contact you on WeChat, your friends will, everyone from who you meet. It's very efficient. You can pay on there. You can use it for maps. You can exchange videos and files. Just be you have to be a bit cautious because it is not encrypted, and it's rather seems that the main complaint of WeChat is that there is, shall we say, observations on it, or it can be censored if need to be. But in terms of its day-to-day function, it's very, very good, and it probably surpasses Facebook and WhatsApp for its utility. So you need this, and ideally you should install this before you get to China. Okay, so other apps that are useful. Alipay, or called Zhufubao in Chinese. Alipay, again, is used to paying almost anything. People don't use cash that much anymore in China now. It's all done electronically. You can, as soon as you can actually get this, use Alipay without a Chinese bank account. Now you can I think, top it up with a credit card. I think there's more details on that which we can supply. Didi is like Uber taxis. Again, that's very good. You don't need to really speak Chinese for this. It can all be done online, and the driver knows where you want to go. This E, where you can see the E, is called Ele.me, which is basically like food delivery. And the food delivery service is exceptional in China. You can pretty much get anything 24 hours a day, and it's cheap. It's, you know, for $5 you can get like a good meal delivered to your door within 20 minutes. You know, this can make you a bit lazy, and it's not uncommon for teachers to have kind of put on a little extra weight, shall we say. There's also you've got your bank applications, and Ctrip. Ctrip is owned by Skyscanners. No, sorry, Ctrip owns Skyscanners now, and this is great for booking train tickets, planes. You can use your Chinese money on this to book your tickets home without having to use your international credit cards or send money home. Ctrip is fantastic. It's a bit of a lifesaver, and you can use it when you're outside of the country. It's one way to spend your Chinese money without having to take it out of the country or incurring charges using it abroad. And once you upload your details in there, you can get everything, you know, it stores your details, and you can just book a flight ticket in like 3 clicks, and a train ticket, you know, very quickly. It's very, very efficient. I would also suggest an app is Taobao, which is basically Alibaba. That's their eBay, Chinese eBay. You can get anything on Taobao. Things will be delivered up to the, you know, same day or the day after. Very cheap. Everyone loves Taobao. Okay, let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so video website. These are some links. TV series without a VPN. I would just really recommend getting your VPN installed. You can also use on the VPN, use your local settings back home, so you can watch your TV from back home as well. For example, if you're from the UK, have a UK VPN setting, and then you can watch like the BBC or ITV or whatever. So this is Taobao we talked about. It's like eBay and Amazon. It is incredibly cheap, efficient. You can get anything on there, even animals. Okay. We will go on to the next slide. So hospitals. Hospitals are quite good in China now. They're busy. Shall we say some of the public areas, the hygiene can be questionable. You do have your insurance as well, which will cover emergencies and so forth. The foreign hospital is at Sir Run Run Shaw. This does have an English-speaking department, and they are good. So you can pay for this service, and it's reasonable. It's kind of about, if I remember, it's about 300 RMB, which is about £30, $40 to see a doctor, and then there's meds on top of that. They usually have lots of appointments ready. It's a nice, quiet, clean, professional floor. I think it's on the 5th floor in 5th floor in Tower 3. And you will see the occasional foreigner going there, and they can give you a full English service. Right, okay. We have the second affiliated hospital, your medical insurance. So in an emergency, or pretty much for every situation you should go to the hospital first. You know, if you need to go, just go to the hospital. Keep all your records in the paper they give you. In China, you'll hear this word called fapiao. Fapiao is Fapiao. This is like an invoice or a receipt. There's nothing like a fapiao in other countries because it's kind of like a tax receipt, so to speak. And you need to keep this for everything. So, because this is how you get your money back. If you do have an accident or you have medical issues, keep your FAPIA, whatever money you spend, and your company reimburse you. But this goes not just for medical claims, it goes for any kind of claim. If you're getting money back from a hotel for something or other, or money back from a taxi, just ask for FAPIA. Okay, so transfer your money back. You have to have your proof of personal income, proof of tax, contract with Echo, passport, and CMB card. So this is to transfer your money from your bank to your bank back home. This can take a bit of time. Echo will supply you with all these documents. There are other ways. There's ways through PayPal as well. And if you, over in China, you make friends with Chinese people, they can also transfer back to your home bank account via Alipay. Now, this is not like an official way of doing something, but, and certainly you can't go around asking HR for unlimited help with this. You kind of just have to make friends with a local Chinese person, and they will help you get this over to the UK. In terms of the cards, you have a Union Pay card, and this can be used in ATMs abroad. For example, in the UK, all of Barclays ATMs, Barclays Bank now, take the Union Pay card. You cannot use your Alipay outside of China as a foreigner, by the way. So, but you can use your ATM card. Chinese Merchant Bank, yeah, this is the information that you require. Okay, your SWIFT code and so forth. Okay, looking at views now, some pictures. So there's lots of different areas of Zhejiang. Hangzhou is the biggest city in there, but some of you will be heading down to Zhoushan. Zhoushan is very beautiful. Bit of a historical fact. Zhoushan is originally what the British wanted instead of Hong Kong. So this area of Ningbo, Zhoushan, Shanghai, it's like the biggest port area in the world now. So most of the largest volume of shipping goes through here. But it's made the area incredibly rich. There's a lot of middle class affluent people around here. Temples, I'm sure as we all know. So these are kind of the places you can visit, you know, on the weekends. I recommend heading, you know, because you'll be living in the east of China, for really deep Chinese culture, head a bit west, more inland. You get a lot of kind of what we think ancient Chinese culture is like. You witness it a bit more the further inland you go away from the East Coast. Famous cultural stars. In terms of famous people within China, we probably won't know many of them in the States. Even the A-class celebrities we think that everyone knows in the world, a lot of Chinese people don't know. They might know Taylor Swift, people like that, but they have their own icons, sporting icons. Famous basketball player called Yao Ming. They have famous actresses. The names can be a bit difficult to learn. Some of them have more English-friendly names like Angela Baby, but you will see them all, and they'll be talking about these people when you make friends. Right, so Chinese people love their food, and everyone's home province or hometown has the best food, apparently. So they're very enthusiastic and they love to share. As you can see, breakfast are very different from what we'd say an English breakfast or American breakfast of pancakes. You know, they will have something called zhou, which is like a porridge. And they will have baozi as well. So it can be very meat orientated, a lot of pork. The bread that you can see in the Chinese photo, this is quite like fried bread. You know, it's nice, but it does take a bit of getting used to. Things like cereal and milk aren't really used for breakfast in China, but you can buy it from the supermarket. Hangzhou cuisine is not so spicy. So local food in Hangzhou is not really spicy. That's more in the middle and west of China as you go inland. But something like Beggar's chicken is delicious. It's very good. So recommend trying the local food. And this also goes for green shrimps with tea and the Westlake vinegar. Most of the fish you'll find in Hangzhou will be river fish, very bony, or lake fish, not like the seafood. Now, everyone in China loves something called hot pot. You will hear people talking about this all the time. It is spicy. It takes some getting used to, but it's a great atmosphere and it's good to meet people there. If a Chinese person invites you for hot pot, go, because it's quite an experience. And the spicy food will come from cities like in Chengdu. It's heavily laden with chili. So if you're not too keen on spicy food, you'll just have to tell whoever you're with, just no chili. Okay. Food in the south, Guangdong food, kind of Hong Kong, Shenzhen food. This area. This is really what we're more used to in the West, in North America and England, in terms of Chinese takeaways. This is the kind of food we eat in what we consider Chinese food in the UK. It's not like the food you'll be eating in Hangzhou, but the food in Hangzhou is tasty. Tea culture, yeah. Young people are more geared towards coffee now, but tea culture is still very important, and Hangzhou is very famous for tea. Go and visit the tea fields when you have time, especially in early summer or late spring or September and October time. They are stunning, really stunning. Okay, so let's quickly move on to how to be a good teacher. We can't really go into too much detail. This is just really a bit of an oversight. You are going to have training, which will be 2 to 3 days. Most of you have already done your TEFL now. Some of you may be experienced teachers. There will be onboarding in department on arrival, and you will undergo observation classes as well. So the training is quite comprehensive on arrival. If for those of you that are new to teaching, I think we'll probably do a separate video at some point and upload it with more detail. But there are, obviously you can learn methodologies, you can go through certain rigor to learn the basics of being a teacher, but it's kind of an art form as well, and it will develop with confidence, in order to stand in front of a class, be able to discipline a class as well as educate them. All these things come together, and it's very rare that you'll be able to get it right straight off. So just remember that, you learn as a teacher every day. Okay. So you're already an all English teacher, right? Okay, so listen, your main remit for coming to China is to speak oral English. It's not so much to teach grammar or for them to sit there quietly. We need these children engaging in conversation. So you need to kind of get them engaged, keep them fun, go into a class prepared. Don't be afraid to control the classroom. Have it on your terms. Keep some kind of negotiation with the class, but remember, that you're the boss, but don't get angry and don't take it personally as well. Preparation is key. I think as you become more experienced and maybe you have certain things in your locker and experience that you can draw from, you don't need as much preparation really. But for your first year teaching, you need to invest. You need to invest the time, you need to plan, and it's worth it because it pays off in the long term. Right. And the classroom control. So, you need to make sure that you interact with silent children, okay? If you need to separate kids, separate them. This is your terms. Create the environment that's most conducive to learning, but it's also conducive for you to allowing yourself to control them. Try to remember names. You can get a good rapport with students and they respect you a lot if you remember the names. Get a reward system as well, going for the for the kids, and you can have it as an ongoing reward system. Okay, and yeah, guideline, ask approval each time. You must kind of get approval for leave. Don't wander off the school premises. Make sure you're talking to HR and you're keeping Echo updated as well. Make friends when you're in China. Definitely make friends with locals. You really, you don't really understand the country till you know the people. So, shall we say it's why I kind of turn my nose up a bit about Shanghai. Shanghai is a great city, but so many foreigners live in a bubble in Shanghai. They rarely act. They can be there for 5 years, 10 years, and for them to not really have spoken any Chinese or interacted with any Chinese people. That's maybe what they want, all well and good, but I think you can get quite a limited understanding of a country and culture that way. Okay. So yes, never stop improving as a teacher. Be willing to learn yourself. Do communicate with school teachers and Echo staff as much as you can. Never physically attack or touch children. Don't show excessive intimacy to people of the opposite sex. This is very, very frowned upon. You must really have professional standards as a teacher, as an ESL teacher. Don't treat this as a bit of a giggle and a holiday. If you violate the law, they will prosecute, and especially when it comes to children, you will see that there's no one is considered anything more sacred or precious on this earth than Chinese children. They are mollycoddled and quite a bit. The welfare of the child is paramount. Dress code for teachers for females. Yeah, I think usually hair tied up or a reasonable haircut. I think that's standard across the board in East Asia. To be extroverted we're often encouraged in the West now that it's okay to show as much individuality as possible. It's seen as unprofessional in East Asia as a whole. It's seen as maybe this flamboyancy is that you're a potential troublemaker, that it's disrespectful. So, conservative styles in terms of clothes and hairstyle, that's really considered the best. Beards as well. Beards are a bit of a contentious issue. They are becoming more accepted in China, but your school in general will not like them. That beards and facial hair is still considered, shall we say, a sign of unkept poverty or desperation. It's not seen as stylish. There are things that are changing a bit, but not so much. Okay, so keeping your hair neat and tidy and tied back for a male as well. So clothes, training centers have their own uniform, but really, dresses, professional dresses for a woman, and for a man, shirt and trousers are at least looking reasonable. Certainly no for any revealing or skimpy clothes like this. Okay. And no for these kind of shoes and jewelries, accessories. Just use your common sense, really. It can be surprising that I think because ESL teachers in general, they can be extrovert, they can be risk takers. They sometimes just forget the professionalism that, you are there to do a job, and it's not all about you. It's not about you expressing yourself. It's about you creating a good learning environment. We're not distracting the kids or just causing a raucous just for your own self-serving gratification. So just be cautious of it. Classes can be big in China. Don't be afraid to walk around the room as well. Control the room. Map it like it's your area. And you will undergo class observations as well and receive feedback accordingly. Lesson plans, there are academic resources online which you can get access to as well. Lesson plans are kept and can be updated. Class schedules will be given in advance. Okay. Working overtime. I think overtime has to be agreed beforehand. You must keep records and it must be agreed to make sure Echo know about it and the HR of the school. Okay. And quickly to review the work manual. So you should be able to get a copy of the work manual by PDF and a hard copy on arrival. It will also include, we should also talk about salaries. Salaries paid on the 15th, usually on the Monday, or I think sometimes Tuesday. There are some changes in dates if they're holiday. If you have a problem with your salary, if you think you've been paid incorrectly, or if it's not paid in, contact HR or your management welfare. Tax. There is monthly tax deducted. It is low in China, and it's a bit changing. The tax bracket changes from year to year, and it depends how much you earn as well. You can get your tax records back from the government as well at any point. If you need these tax records for your home country, I think countries like the US may require them. You can get them and keep them for your reference. And here is a copy of the tax policy. Okay, so you can see for the very, very high earners, it can be quite high, but for regular workers, it's a low tax rate. Okay. Here's some examples here of what your taxable income will be. So if you want to look at this in more detail, pause the video and take a look at this. Right, KPI, evaluations. So every school, as well as being evaluated by ECHO, the school will evaluate you on various different markers. Now, these school evaluations, this is a tricky part, shall we say. The school may be saying to your face that they are very, very happy with everything and everything's hunky-dory, and the parents may be all smiles. However, there can be a bit of indirect criticism, and that's often given to ECHO rather than to you directly. So just be mindful of this, because they expect ECHO to deal with this kind of discipline. You'll get something called a KPI, which means key performance indicator monthly. So this will look at your areas, which will grade your performance. Now, KPI is usually, most teachers will hit this KPI without a problem. It's kind of, if you're really underperforming, you may get low scores. If you're late, especially, well, KPI usually comes down to your conduct and professionalism. Everyone knows, especially when you're a new teacher, that there's scope to improve. So this isn't so critical in KPI scores. If your KPIs are struggling, you will be given more training. Training can be ongoing, as well as undergoing observations. You also get training days as well. I think there'll be another video with more detail about this as well. KPIs are nothing to worry about, okay? They're very common in every business in China, not just for teachers. In terms of a foreigner working in China, we get less KPI criticism than locals do, and it's very rarely we would get KPI deducted. Last payment, last month salary and other benefits will be paid together next day of termination of your date. Okay, so that's at the end of your contract. Tax rate and income benefits is 3%. Okay, so let me just go back down here. Absent from work, 3 days salary deducted. It can be a massive problem if it's an unauthorized absence. Any leave must be pre-arranged. If there's someone just to not turn up to work, there are schools, there are lessons arranged. ECHO will themselves pay a massive fine as well to the school. And it can leave a very bad reputation for the teacher, school, and ECHO. So really, any emergencies, anything that is reasonable, you need to inform ECHO HR, schools HR. Some things happen. Life is full of surprises, right? But drunken days, not coming into school, not good. Okay. Part-time jobs. Officially you cannot teach part-time. Is that you're working with ECHO, your FEC, your foreign expert certificate, it only gives you insurance and right to work for that company, and that goes for everyone. I'm sure you'll meet experienced teachers around that will talk about other things, but for your first year, I think you have to be realistic with this. Your first year in China, see it as an investment. Become very good at your job. Learn your environment with your school. Don't go running around China trying to get your fingers in all pies, so to speak. You should just really concentrate on the job that you're there to do. Right. You must keep note of your accommodation address, where you're registered with the police as well. Your teacher, manager, welfare officer will take care of this with you as well. It's important that you register with the police when you first arrive in China. Okay. So your passport is your only identity that you can use in China. If you change your passport, you have to inform everyone, including the bank, because it's all held against your old passport. The visa process, most of you watching this video should know about now. Arrive in China with a work visa. So this is the arrival process. Medical check, and you register your address with the police and you get your insurance. You will also get your 15 working days. Oh, you get your passport. So your passport will go to the bureau for 15 days. So you will be without your passport for 15 days whilst they put your residence permit inside your passport. You will be given a piece of paper, and this piece of paper is like a receipt, and you can use that as your passport to get around China, to get on trains and stuff. Because if you want to book a train ticket, you do have to show your passport, but this piece of paper will be a substitute for your passport. It's the same for everyone, right? So every foreigner working in China at some point has to hand their passport over to the local bureau. You're without it for 15 working days, which can be up to 3 weeks, if not just beyond that, if there's a holiday, so forth, and then you get it back. It's quite standard practice, and a lot of countries have this as well. So it's just something that you need to expect. Flight ticket booking. Echo can give you some advice on what flights to book if you haven't booked your flight yet. You cannot leave China before your contract expiration date. Classes are finished. Well, look, if you have an emergency back home, you can leave China. You do keep hold of your passport. In terms of working or running out on your contract, it's not good. Echo get a massive fine, you get a massive fine. However, you are not prisoner in China by any stretch of the imagination. So I think we need to make that clear. You should leave before on the expiration date of your residence permit. Do not overstay the date of expiry on your residence permit, because you will have to pay a fine. Okay. Inform Echo. You can just use WeChat to say about your travel itinerary. Say, yeah, I'm leaving on the 21st of July, on the 3rd of July, whatever, and then they can make a note. Okay. 3 documents must be provided to get your flight allowance: stamped contract, completion certificate from the school. So the school will say, yes, you completed your contract, you get your certificate back. Your e-receipt, so how you paid on the internet, just email that over. You should get a receipt. You can find it in your emails. And also just to upload some of your lesson plans, okay, that you've done. I'm not sure if there's a minimum to that, but I think it's fair to say, that lesson plans are a bit of a currency in China, that they will be used in future by other teachers. So when it comes to the breach of contract, if you walk out on your contract, or you decide to just get another job with your school and break your contract, your residence permit can be cancelled, as well as your foreign expert certificate. It can leave a bad record on uni. You can be refused entry into China in the future, and you can also lose a reference letter. Okay. However, at this point, I think it's fair to say that there shouldn't be massive scare stories where you're going to go to prison or anything. It just means the worst case, you will be refused entry back into China. You have to realize that you need to keep a professionalism in all this. Is that, contracts are there to be fulfilled. It's what, is the foundation of business, trade, and commerce, is that we should be good to our word. So, emergencies do happen. We understand that, but just skipping out on contracts because you decide that you like the look of somewhere else, or you want to be at a school close to a bar or something like that, that's pretty lame, really. Okay. So do not overstay. Any overstays, you'll probably get a fine. It's the same with most countries, whether you overstay in Thailand, Japan, or whatever. So they can detain you if it's an excessive overstay, but usually it's just a bit of a fine. So you just make sure you keep looking in your passport to know the date when you have to leave. If you're staying for a second year, easy, you just get renewed, okay? Right. Religious policies. So China is a secular country. Religion is tolerated, but there should be no preaching. I've forgotten the word. I've forgotten. Anyway, so basically the attempt to go over to China to excessively preach any religious material, no. Okay. So 99% of foreign teachers in Zhejiang are from ECHO. ECHO is designated a cooperative company in foreign teachers affairs. Yeah, so it's supported by the local government. Okay, so it's all above board. And there's plenty more materials as well that you can access from the online teacher support on WeChat. There's a subscription service. And also you can get in touch with your the head of teacher management, which is Teresa. She's available there. She is available for emergencies pretty much 24/7. Okay, so I think that's it. This was just a bit of a rough guide to talk you through the PPT for those of you watching this online. I think there'll be some more videos from ECHO at some point. If you have any questions, you can reach directly to the office, to your recruiter who you're speaking to, or the teacher welfare officer. Okay, guys, thank you very much, and I bid you goodbye. Goodbye.